Hey Russell, my man, it's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you so very much for being here. And you see, my man, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, Russell, I want to say thank you so very much for investing. I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, Russell, my man, you are on this platform right now because you did invest in yourself. And oftentimes, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. To say some couple of months back or so, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, just recently, my man, I was on that same road, and this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree. You see, the mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did. And it wowed me because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes. So I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day. I was so excited. Here is my point: the fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Russell that you are today. That alone has made it really impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request for me to be on the show, because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. Your philosophies, your insight, the impact your work is having, how you're offering your solutions. These stuffs are amazing. Your journey, beautiful stuffs. And just before I sent you that request, my man, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Russell is doing. Not only me now, but even with the audience. And here we are today with the amazing Russell. So thank you so very much, my man, for doing that yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I'm quite excited to have you on the show today for two reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Russell, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge now, but the application of it. And you see, my man, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Russell on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, my man, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, my man, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So, for that reason, Russell, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Russell got here. Then, afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, my man, over to you.
Okay. Well, it started for me when I interned for the New York State Assembly back in the late 90s. As a dyslexic, they put me in the program, the Majority Leaders Program and Counsel's Office with the three administrative assistants because I had a first grade reading and writing ability. But my accommodations were generally, instead of doing a big paper as required, I gave an oral presentation. But my college, SUNY Center at Buffalo, didn't like that. So instead of 15 credits of A minus, I got 15 credits of F. They pulled my accommodations. They pulled my grade. So at that point, I said, no more. I'm solving this. So to solve it, I went to law school to audit two classes after college, and I went specifically to speak with Professor Warner, a dyslexic professor. And on the second day of contracts, he called on me. And what they try to do is to keep asking you questions to embarrass you until you can eventually argue any point at any time. But on your second day of class, nobody essentially is prepared for this. I was the exception. So when he called on me, everything just lined up. Everything slowed down. And in the next 15 minutes, he couldn't beat me. I couldn't beat him. At the end, he said, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. And then he moved on. And then I applied what I learned there to my property quizzes. You're supposed to read the question, think for 3 to 5 minutes, and then answer it. I read much slower. I didn't think for more than 2 seconds, and I answered. And I kept getting perfect hundreds. I was done with the quiz 20 minutes into class, sitting around twiddling my fingers. I said, "This is easy." Well, it wasn't because it was naturally easy for a dyslexic. It was basically what happened is this. This is the top book in my field. It does brain scans. It's from Yale University. Here's what's going on. You see the back part of the non-impaired brain?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you see how the back part of the dyslexic brain has virtually no neural activity?
Hmm. Yeah, that's right.
But the front part's about 2.5 times overactive.
True.
Okay. I decided to use that front part. It deals with articulation followed by word analysis. So what I did is I took that information, and my first program was funded by the New York State Senate. And what it did is it took highly motivated college-bound dyslexic high school kids and increased their writing from that of 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds to that of students who are 21 or 22. They jumped 6 to 8 grade levels 1 year. It cost New York State less than $900. But then when I was asked to move that around to everybody, it wouldn't work. So I had to switch it over to word analysis followed by articulation. But that was only part three of the model. The first part I found is we had to focus on the kids' speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability, and then not learning from the general to the specific, but from the specific to the general. But that wasn't enough. The college professors came to me and said, so you have some kids scoring above average on the writing test for entering graduate students. We don't care. We want the craft of research, which was developed will be of interest to your audience, which was developed by the University of Chicago in 1995 because their PhD students didn't know how to write. It broke things down into context, problem, solution. And the solution is you need to actually learn something when the reader reads the paper substantial, something original. If not, don't write it. That gets rid of almost all the papers written in high school and college in the United States each year. Why is this important? Because in the days of artificial intelligence, every time a new model comes out, we have to relearn prompt engineering. My take is you don't have to relearn prompt engineering. You need to prompt engineer your mind. All right. And if you learn context problem solution with the craft of research, you can work with any AI model anytime and be extraordinarily effective.
Amazing. Well, this is quite new to me, and this is so eye-opening. Thank you so very much for sharing, Russell. So I've got this question, all right? Why do dyslexic kids often feel dumb?
It's because think of about how we're graded. K through 3, we learn to read, which they have trouble with. In fourth grade and on, they read to learn. So 0 to 8, it's learning to read. 9 and above, it's reading to learn. And we tend to fall back from that. Also, our schools predominantly teach from the general to the specific, and we can't do that. We learn from the specific to the general because if you ask a dyslexic, in your speciality, your area of extreme interest and ability, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. All right, we need the specific to the general for an anchor point to force us to think linearly. And lastly, our schools try to make us well-rounded individuals before we can specialize. It's all the way through the first 2 years of college. We only want to specialize. And you take those factors together, it just sets us up for failure.
Hmm, I got that. I got that. And that's so true. Okay, what about this one? How can parents help rebuild their child's self-esteem?
It's very simple. Find out what your child's speciality is. So how do we do that? It's a Saturday morning. They say there's nothing to do. You can do whatever you want all day. What would it be? And whatever that is, that's their speciality. All right. I've had people want to learn about Disney's biography. I had one kid who was interested in 1970s Ford F-150 trucks. It runs the gamut. Then you go to audible.com, find a book that they're really interested in. All right. And they make sure they like the narrator. Then you can get the physical book. And that's what we use to show them to overcome their reading and writing issues.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a great approach. So, still have some questions here. What about a child who is already shut down? How do you talk to a child like that?
Well, what I do is I ask the child, I deal with that all the time. You have two outcomes. Either the kid becomes so motivated, nothing's going to stop them, or they become shattered as a person. There's not much in the middle. So when the kid's already really depressed, what I ask them is, okay, what's your speciality? And they say, what? And I'll go through that Saturday morning question. And then they go ahead and tell me. And I said, okay, I'm going to ask you two questions. In your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? Yes. So then I say, what we're going to do is we're going to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. They're like, okay. And then I'll ask, this is the side of the severe dyslexia. I'll ask, you have an idea in your head, you want to write about it, so you're going to type fingers, keyboard, fingers, keyboard. Ideas in your head. You take your fingers, you put it on the keyboard. Does the idea fly out of your head, leaving you with an empty brain? Well, for the ones with severe dyslexia, they're going to say yes to that. Most will say no. Either way, the kids are shocked. They're like, how do you know that about me? And I'll say, do you think you're the only one? And then I'll ask them, has anybody ever asked you these questions before? No. Is this how you would like to learn? Yes. There's the buy-in. That's how we take them from being really depressed to getting them back on track to get their reading and writing to grade level and beyond.
Wow, that's profound and that's a beautiful approach. I love that. I love that. So there's this part I'm curious about, okay? Could you share a success story of a dyslexic student or yeah, student?
So my most successful student in the last 10 years was Casey. I never saw it before. I will never see this again. Casey was 10 years old, reading at the second grade level. So think a 10-year-old reading of that of a seventh grader, or I'm sorry, of a 7-year-old. She was profoundly interested in Theodore Roosevelt. So I assigned her this book, all 900 pages. That book is for 10th grade to first year college level. Think 16 to 18. Casey, she desperately wanted to do reading first, so I modified my programs. I normally do writing first. She spent 2 to 3 hours a night in her room for 6 months, 7 days a week, most of the days in summertime. Then, when she was in sixth grade, now 11, she was in silent reading, and her classmates came over to her and they said, "What are you doing?" They took her book, this big, massive book, and she said, "Well, that's my book for an outside reading program." None of the kids in her reading section, her private reading section, could get past the first paragraph.
Wow.
Casey knew every word in that book. Every word in that book she knew. And then when I asked Casey, so how did that make you feel? She said, it was really weird because I'm the best reader in my class now. All right. Casey did that in 6 months. Normally it takes about a year to 2 years to do the same thing.
Oh
And
boy.
it said, uh, I worked with Casey for 15 minutes a week. Extraordinarily motivated kid. And from
Tell you.
there, we ended up working on a paper. Well, here's what she wrote about. She was right. She was complaining about. She was doing Victorian, your dating styles, and what she was writing about was she was complaining about how Theodore Roosevelt mistreated Edith during their dating. Didn't like how she was being treated, and she wrote a very long research paper on that. And yeah, I would say she was ready for college at the end of eighth grade.
Amazing. Oh boy, this is a great success story, I tell you. Very, very great. Wow. Well, it just shows how good you are at what you're doing, and it's amazing the impact it is having. So, to bring this to an end, Russell, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about everything we've discussed so far, or even ask you questions, how can that be possible?
Well, the easiest way to contact me is you'll have a link where you can click on, and it'll bring you right to what I like to call our 3 reasons document. You just fill out a form, and we'll send that to you directly. And it tells you the 3 reasons your child's having trouble in school with dyslexia and how to overcome it. And
Right, my man. What
okay,
about your website?
sure. So, the best way to reach me is dyslexiaclasses.com. And again, that's dyslexia plural. I'm sorry, dyslexiaclasses plural.com. And there's a contact form, or you can click on the link that you'll have where they can go and fill out the form. And it's a free 15-minute consultation with me, talking to both you and your child about the 3 reasons that dyslexics have trouble in school and how to overcome it. And the what I'd like to leave your audience with is, based on the science, we don't need to guess anymore. I mean, there it is, front part of the brain. Word analysis followed by articulation. Step 3. Step 1, focus on what your kid's really interested in. Step 2, teach it from the specific to the general. You follow those 3 things, and this is not hard to fix.
Not hard to fix if you follow those 3 steps. Got it. So that's gonna be the end of the show, my man. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this, I tell you, incredible insight with us. It means a whole lot, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.